it's probably one of the hardest working dudes I've ever been around. One of the most competitive guys that I've ever been around. Somebody that works out at game speed the whole time. Training and playing is equivalent to me, right? You don't want to be drilled out. That's what I call it, drilled out. Like you just mentally, you come into a gym and you ask a player to like mimic game speed, mimic like all these game movements.
All right, we're here with another Swish Coaches interview down here in Miami with Remy. People call you Remy Workouts, you know, by your IG handle or what's it by your go?
People call me Remy.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. No doubt, man. As we were kind of talking off air, man, I've been watching you from afar since we got into this media game, and you worked with, you know, some Hall of Fame, you know, talent. I mean, all the way down to overseas guys and even kids, man. But, you know, before we even start, man, I just got to tip my hat to you, much like I did with Ronnie, you know, just building this basketball culture out here in Miami, man. It's definitely a hub, and it wouldn't be that way without you and, you know, Moran and Ronnie and the rest of the guys out here. So, but as we saw this summer, you know, you're working with Anthony Edwards, you know, before the Olympics. Describe that experience and how you saw what you guys worked on translate onto the court.
Yeah, man, I've known Anthony Edwards since high school. Very, very hard worker. One of the guys I used to train, Run Carry, was another ranked guy. So I think they played together in some kind of, you know, circuit. Ant decided to come down to Miami when they were in high school, and we worked out, and we were cool ever since. And it's probably one of the hardest working dudes I've ever been around. One of the most competitive guys that I've ever been around. Somebody that works out at game speed the whole time. He doesn't come in the gym to play around, nothing, no nonsense type of guy. And guys like that just elevate you as a trainer, you know. And it's just a great match, you know. I'm fortunate and I'm lucky to be able to have worked with somebody like that, especially the magnitude of what, you know, what was going on. Like obviously preparing for the Olympics, you know what I mean? He had a deep run in the playoffs, didn't get a lot of time to rest, so to see him come in and lock in and go that hard, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, he came early too. I remember seeing, I was like, yo, I felt like the playoffs ended like 2 weeks prior or something like that. Right. He was already in the gym, man. And so I was in a workout with Anthony. He's working out with Key down from Atlanta, and they were in Vegas, and it was late night. This was his second year, going into his second year. Mm-hmm. And I remember at one point during the workout, it was something basic. It might have just been a crossover, like pull up, but like I guess he didn't feel like his footwork was perfect. Right. And he repped that same move. It's a basic move. He repped it out like 20 straight minutes. And at that moment, it clicked, and I was like, he's going to be great, because I've never seen anybody so anal about some little detail, you know, like that. What things have you seen in Anthony Edwards that you say like has gotten to him to this point of greatness?
That right there, the attention to detail. And like I said, how hard he goes. Every rep has to symbolize a game. I think that was very important for me, just doing my research on him, obviously watching film on him, seeing his run in the playoffs, putting him in spots that I know he would be, and then also off the ball as well, just knowing what he's about to prepare for the Olympics. He's only won basketball, surrounded by all those greats, so I wanted to make sure his shooting was great. He had good rhythm. He was in good shape. Everything was, you know, like I said, game speed and in-game, a lot of moving. Just wanted to prepare him, and I think that his competitiveness and knowing the type of battles he was about to have with those type of guys, I think every day he approached that, and he walked in the gym, he's like, you know, I'm gonna make a difference. I'm not just happy to be a part of this team. I'm gonna make a difference for sure.
Right. And then moving forward, watching the Olympic Games, what were your thoughts on the Olympic Games? You know, touch on his performance and then just the performance of the team in general.
I mean, I think to be honest, a lot of these teams, you know, they have a lot more chemistry, right? I think we get the best players in the world to come together. Egoless basketball, and they don't have a lot of time to prepare. Like there's guys that were on that team that just won a championship or were in the finals or semifinals, and then you kind of tone your body down after that season, and then you have to rev it back up to that kind of form. As you watch Steph Curry, you watched him struggle the first few games, right? I think he was just finding his rhythm, his touch, getting in shape. And then when he figured it out, like it was back to Steph Curry, and you could tell, like, I think that just the overall for all of the NBA guys, that's why these games are so close. Like, we are better, but they're definitely bridging the gap. But I think it's just the amount of time to prepare. Like, that's what, if we were able to prepare for 2 months and then go, like how the NBA does when they go to training camp and they have preseason and then they play regular. If we're able to do that, then I think the gap will be a little bit further. But, most of these guys are together all the time on the FIBA side. So I don't think we get, enough time to prepare. But that isn't, when we have the best athletes in the world, they're going to look at it like you don't have an excuse, right? But I think that, the way they play in FIBA, the way they play together, the way they move the ball, the way they're smart, the way they understand the game, I think it makes it difficult. Regardless of talent, it makes it difficult. So it's always going to be a game. And also, our league MVP is not U.S. You know what I mean? Like, he's not from the USA. So, you got guys that they're playing against that dominate them in the USA, and they're going to dominate them in FIBA play. So the gap is definitely getting closer. I think it was a total 96 guys in the NBA, that or something like that, which is insane. When you talk about back in the Dream Team days, probably when it was only 12 or something like that. Now to be 50 plus guys that you're playing against in FIBA play that's currently in the NBA or have NBA experience is nuts.
Right. And there was a lot of talk, obviously, about Jayson Tatum and his lack of playing time during the Olympics. What was your take on that situation?
I feel like this. When you say, hey, we're going to bring the best players from the U.S. to come together to play and represent your country, it has to be just that. At the end of the day, egos go out the door. You get in the gym. You have a short time to prepare for training camp. Especially somebody like him who just won the NBA championship. So sometimes it's not even physical, it's mentally. He went from the peak of the peak, then toned down to get right back to the peak of the peak. As far as him not playing, I think that was wrong. Just for the simple fact, I think we owe him his due diligence to have him out there on the floor. For whatever reasons why they didn't have him, I feel like you should still give him a chance to show that he can't do that. Whatever y'all saying he couldn't do, give him a chance to mess up. And now you have some evidence or you have some research to go by and say, well, whether it's defense, hey, you can't guard smaller guards, show me that. Give him an opportunity when he's an all-NBA player. He is a champion. He's in the highest of the high of all these players. For that past season, I think that we owe him that as, U.S. representatives to put him on the floor, even in the preseason games. And I get it. People don't play well right away. Steph Curry is a perfect example. Like I said before, he wasn't playing well. But they weren't like, we're not going to go with you. We're going to continue to go with Steph because we know what you're capable of. And I think that the same way he's owed that, I think JT is owed that. He's been probably the best winner in the last 4 or 5 years in the NBA. His resume is outrageous. He's all NBA guy. You have to give him that chance. And I get it. For whatever reasons they have in the real games, not the practice games, you got to give him a chance. You got to give him a chance. He's been all NBA for a reason, and it's only 5 players that can make all NBA. So. I think that shows that he's one of the top 5, top 10 players in the NBA. So he should have gotten a chance for sure. So if it was up to me, I'm going to give JT a chance. There's no question. And there's no disrespect to anybody that was playing ahead of him. I think that they're there for a reason also, but at the end of the day, his accolades and what he's done in the NBA, you have to give him a chance.
Yeah, for sure. I think especially after winning championship in our country and representing our country in front of the world, like, I think it's just a bad look and a narrative that didn't need to be out there.
For sure. Even with Joel Embiid not playing, it's like outrageous. It's like the last 3 MVPs, he's won them in the NBA. So like, I don't think that. Another thing, I'm not questioning those coaches who are experts over there. Spoelstra is a good friend of mine, but adjusting to South Sudan or South Sudan adjusting to us is the question. You understand? Like, okay, Joel, we want to guard pick and rolls, whatever the case. I don't know, whatever their reasoning was. I think it's a bigger adjustment adjusting to league MVPs instead of players on South Sudan. And it's no disrespect to South Sudan, it's just that's Joel Embiid. Yeah. Adjust to Joel. We're not going to adjust to you. You know what I mean? Like, so, but once again, I don't question what they're doing. If it was just up to me, Joel Embiid and Jayson Tatum are playing. There's not a day that those guys, when you talk about the top 10 players in the NBA, you form a team that those guys aren't playing the majority of the game. I'm just not rolling.
I think a lot of people would agree with you. But speaking of elite players, you yourself have worked with a number of elite players over your career. What was like a breakthrough moment? What was the breakthrough moment for you when you were like, yeah, this is what I can do. I can train these guys and make elite players better.
To be honest, I know everyone's probably looking for me to say like a D-Wade or a Paul George or somebody or Jimmy Butler or, these high-level guys that I've had a chance to be in the gym with. But honestly, what solidified me as becoming an elite trainer to me in my mind to know that what I was doing was working is when you work with the youth so long and they become an elite player and they become an NBA player. That solidifies it. That's real development because there's so much ups and downs that go on from a 5th grader or a 6th grader all the way to or being drafted lottery. You get what I'm saying? Like it's so many ups and downs. A lot of things can go wrong. A lot of things can go right. Not outgrowing each other as trainer and player, right? Because the game is changing. Like these are all things that solidify development to me. You know what I mean? It's not just physically; it's mentally. Staying locked in mentally, keeping them engaged mentally throughout the process. I think guys like Brandon Knight, Jet Howard, Vernon Carey, those guys to me solidify real development because Vernon Carey, somebody like that, I had him since 6th grade. Jet since 4th grade, you know what I mean? So like those transitions to me solidify. Now it's, of course, did I learn a ton training with Dwayne Wade, a Hall of Famer? Of course, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about business. I learned a lot just about training top level guys, understanding their bodies, understanding their pace, the level of like the attention that you get when you work with somebody like that. It's like all eyes are on you to continue to make the right choices. So, of course, you gain a lot of experience through that, but it's very difficult to be with somebody 13 years, the Brandon Knights, like to do that. That's very difficult to make, to be a part of them being lottery picks. When it was just a dream. They weren't making millions of dollars yet. You understand? They weren't professionals. They didn't have big houses. It was just the dream of coming up, him driving 30 minutes just to come work out at 5:30 in the morning. Then he got to go to school. Then we work out before practice. Then I sit and watch, analyze his practice. Then work out after practice. Then got to do it the next day all over again. From a kid standpoint, like, that's difficult to have somebody at that mental capacity to understand achieving his goal and then being a valedictorian at your school. I think that's a different level of focus and different level of development. To me, I think that's what solidified the breakthrough.
Right. You said something that I hear a lot of trainers say, and they say like, in working with elite talent, they say, I learned a lot from this player. What do you mean by that? By like you said, you work with Dwayne Wade, you learn a lot from him. And I'm sure you've learned from a number of different players, but how can a trainer learn from a player?
Well, I think it's not my way or the highway. That's the first thing. You can't, all egos go out the door. I don't care who I've trained. Who knows their body better than the actual player, right? Who knows their game better than the actual player, and who can help me adjust by giving me information about your own self, right? No matter how much film I can watch, it coming from the actual player's mouth is important. So I might have hesitant pull, and he says, well, my body doesn't move that way, or I have to listen. Obviously there's some things that I might override, but I have to listen. I think it's not a dictatorship. It's a partnership together of just coming in the gym and just figuring out ways to improve. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And what are some of the challenges that you face in training like these type of top level athletes?
Consistency, mentally consistent. And I always tell them, you can have a bad shooting day, but you can't never come in here and have a bad mental day. You just can't. I think you have to be energetic, you have to be happy, you have to be grateful, you have to be coming here with an open mind to get better, be receptive to information, be receptive to criticism. Those things are non-negotiable. Missing or making shots, you can't control that, right? You can fix your form, you can stay low, you can rep it out, you can do a lot of things to help it, but the consistency comes from the other stuff, right? The consistency comes from showing up early, leaving late. The consistency comes from being competitive amongst yourself. You have to be your biggest critic, right? These are things that make you elite to me, other than the other stuff.
Right. And what do you see with great players, good players? What's that little degree of separation? What do you see?
Listening, just listening, and being coachable, right? Being coachable is huge. I think, it's so many trainers and so many coaches and it's a different era now. So it's so many people teaching the game different ways, which is great. I think this is why our game is so skilled. Doesn't necessarily mean better, but it's just more skilled, right? Like guys can just do so much with the basketball. So I think that building your team, building your people that you trust, and staying locked into it, right? It's not that other people don't know what's going on, but when you have something that's working, you stay with it, you lock into it, and you believe in it. And it should be like the Bible, you know what I mean? And I think guys that do that separate themselves because they're not all over the place mentally. Hey, I gotta learn how he does things. I gotta learn how he does things. I gotta learn how he does things. I think I don't frown on it totally because I think everybody does good things, and I think you can pick up on different things from different people, but master something first before you start learning something new. That's the key, because you was with this guy all summer and you went back to your team and you failed, right? So you switch, you stay locked in, you stay, you stay consistent and you trust the process. And then when you master something, you see success, and now you're really, really good at it. Now it's time to go learn something else. Okay, this guy does ball handling. I'm gonna go over here, but I'm still gonna stay consistent with what I do. If there's any way I can merge them together, or if I can do half here, I get it. But it's all about mastering something, figuring out how to get to the 10,000 hours of something, and being really good at it. You know what I'm saying? Before you start getting all different type of information in your brain.
Right. I used to have a mentality, everybody says, oh, this trainer's bad, he's good. But I used to say, as long as I'm in a basketball gym with a basketball, I can get better at something. I don't care if you just got me dribbled to the same elbow for 2 hours, shooting a pull up. Like you said, that's an opportunity to master at least one thing.
For sure.
And I think that's important. And kind of transitioning from that thought, what are some of the trends you're seeing now with this younger generation of players that was different from when you first started?
Just a variety of stuff that they're learning, different footwork, balances, the manipulation of the game, the manipulation of the basketball. The pace, the stop, the goals, the counters. It's just totally different, man. Back in the day, I started training by '05. It was like one dribble pull-ups, two dribble pull-ups, one dribble counter to a pull-up, maybe a step back. Then you got your post move over left shoulder, over right shoulder, maybe a pump fake, maybe, it was different. But also the game was different. I don't expect training to be the same if the game is changing. Now there's stretch fives and stretch fours, right? There's understanding how to play out of dunker stretches now. Like you got delay actions and stuff like that. So the game has totally changed. And I think if we don't evolve as trainers and just continue to watch it and educate ourselves, we fall short. We fall short with whoever you're working with. Just understanding the lingo. If you're training NBA players, you have to understand the terminologies. If you're training college players, you have to understand the terminologies. I think, the best advice I would give any trainers, up and coming trainers, is be aligned with who that player plays for. Don't go against the grain. It's not our show. It's about the player. It's never about our clout. I don't think we should receive any clout. At the end of the day, our job is to get people better. Mentally, physically, emotionally, not just through drills, right? But yeah, definitely.
With the NBA, obviously they have huge staffs. They have head coaches, assistant coaches. They have a whole player development staff.
Right.
Where do skills trainers fit, within that ecosystem for the player?
We align with what they want. We have to speak the same language. I think that's the super important thing going into an off season, getting a breakdown from their coaching staff that sees him every day, understands his tendencies, and most importantly, they know what they want from him. Who am I to adjust that, right? I need to make him great within those schemes, right? You have to crawl before you walk in order to, sometimes guys want to shoot threes when they're not allowed to. You have to understand how to build trust and consistency, right? In order for them to do what you want, you got to do what they want at a high level. You know what I mean? And still, there's a possibility you still won't be able to do what you want to do in your mind. And I think where I bridge the gap is sometimes they're like the authority because that's their team, right? But if it's coming from me and I'm saying the same language, they might be more receptive to it. So, it's never me telling them go left and the team telling them to go right. I think the team is just telling them to go left a certain way. I'm going to tell them to go left a different way. You understand what I mean? But we all have the same goal. And I think that's super important. I learned that later on as I was, starting in my career. It was like, me being great, not worrying about anything else. And now I understand, you get more respect, you get more welcome when you go to these arenas, and you get more welcome when you go to these practice facilities and you're working with these guys on their extra times. They have to trust that you're not going against the grain. You know what I mean? So I think it becomes one big family when they respect you, and when they do respect you, that's how you earn your respect first and foremost. But once they do respect you, then it's an easy manage for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine, man. I was always the type. Sometimes you just want to hear a different voice.
Yeah,
you get cussed out and getting yelled at every day. So it's just hearing that different voice. But as a skills trainer, how do you work on your game and improve your game?
Man, watching lots of film, talking to lots of players. If you just talk to them, they'll tell you a lot that's going on in their days, their struggles, what is hard for them to understand. I think hearing those stories and trying to help them within those, it strengthens everything that I'm doing. Just receiving their information, going to practices, watching practices, learning, videoing certain things, seeing how guys are being used, and just figuring out, okay, well, he's being used this way. How do I take it to another level for him? How do I make him realize that this is exactly what you need to do to be solidified in the NBA? So I feel like I said, I'm just watching a lot of film and just continuing to get better myself and just watching other NBA players, how they're progressing and seeing what they're doing. Like it's just a lot of like no ego and just more receptive. It's not, no, I'm the number one trainer in the world. There's no such thing to me because I feel like everybody does things differently. I think the best ones, like I said, are people that always are willing to listen and learn and never too big to learn. Like I can learn from a high school coach. I can learn from a high school trainer. I can learn, you can come in and just learn. Like they just somebody else's brain of how they're thinking the game. Like it's, whether it's good or bad, just understanding different perspectives can help me.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's definitely important. One of the things that I always wondered was, hoopers sometimes they'll just get out, quiet gym, just work on their game, shoot around, whatever it is. As a trainer, do you sometimes go into an empty gym, start mapping out just different drills? Like where does your creative side come out with your training?
For sure. I mean, I think I specialize in the build up, going through steps, like step 1, step 2, step 3, right? We have the model like, if I get to step 1, step 2, it involves 1. If I get to step 3, it involves 2 and 1. If I get to step 4, it involves 3, 2, and 1. So it's just a build up. I think seeing a drill that I might do and say, well, how do I progress from it, right? And I think that's for me, when I talk to people, they have trouble with that. But for me, I think that I've gotten really good at progressing something small into something big, like multiple actions. How do you progress? Where do you relocate? Where do you know what I'm saying? Like, so yes, definitely. You might go into a gym, I might draw it up on the board, I might see it and just figure out how to progress. What is the next action? What if they defend you this way? What do you do here? Like it's not, because at the end of the day, basketball is not cookie cut. I can draw up a timeout, I play in a timeout and think that it's going to go this way and they might do the complete opposite. Yeah. So my thing is to prepare them for the complete opposite and to prepare them for what we drew up.
Yeah. And one of my last questions is, with the state of basketball being the way it is and everything being so three-point heavy, what is your process and philosophy in regards to improving somebody as a shooter?
First thing first, you always want to improve, right? You want to improve at everything. But when you talk about shooting, you have to understand priority, right? A player always wants to see himself get better, whether it's with shooting, dribbling, offensive moves. I think it's very important, like we spoke, to understand usage, right? Usage is in a sense of how your team uses you. So in your mind as a player, you're like, this summer, this person got paid, and he shot this from the 3 at the 5, and I think I got to do that. But in actuality, it might not be how your team uses you. So understanding your usage rate and how they use you, you can't waste a summer on shooting when you're in DHOs and rolling hard and playmaking out of DHO for 90% of the time, right? I think it's a gray area where, when they get with their teams, they might not never let them shoot. But when they get to me, I might give them 10%, right? It's the 90-10 rule, you give me 90% of everything you got of what your team, how your team uses you, and then we progress, how we said we build up. And then, at the end of the day, somebody like a Andre Drummond, right? I use reverse psychology with him, with his free throw shooting. I'm like, people want you to become a better free throw shooter, but you got to become a better shooter first to become a better free throw shooter. So your form, your base, and low. So, one summer we just started shooting a lot more than normal. And it was, in his mind, he's thinking, I'm about to go release this new skill. And then, I'm like, okay, when it gets to about 3/4 of the summer, I'm going to tell him, hey, this is why we're doing this. Right. Like, you have to understand, this is not for you to go be a 3-point specialist. It's for you to become a better shooter from the free throw line. And mentally, I play that game. If you feel confident shooting the ball, free throws become a lot easier. So sometimes you got to play that mental game with them. and then also you have to give a little so that I can get a lot. You know what I mean? So we got to play that game as well.
Okay, and actually, this last thing just popped into my head. You've built some of the best open runs in the country. As we know, there's kind of this line drawn in the sand where some players are real heavy on the training and not so much an open gym, and vice versa. Explain your thoughts on the importance of open gym and where it fits into development.
Yeah, I think social media is really bad. It makes everything like a competition, or it kind of makes everything like a gimmick. Who got the best runs, or who's this, who's that. I think, in my mind, how I use runs, right? Training and playing is equivalent to me, right? You don't want to be drilled out. That's what I call it, drilled out. Like you just mentally, you come into a gym and you ask a player to mimic game speed, mimic all these game movements, and nobody guarding with no body contact. You don't understand pace. You have to stage the pace. You have to stage body contact. You have to stage a contest. What better way to see if what you're working on is improving through somebody who doesn't know what's going to happen, right? You understand what I'm saying? You need to see a real live body, a real live contest, real live movements to measure what you're doing. I think it shouldn't be more than training, and it shouldn't be more training than playing. I think it's a time in the summer where training dominates, and then it's a time in the summer where playing should dominate. Even as an older player, I think you have to get out there and play, because you're going to go play basketball. You're not training to go become a drill guy. You understand what I'm saying? At some point, you have to play. You have to play. You got to see what those hits feel like, that pace. Like I said, of the game, you have to go see how, oh wow, I'm in great shape. This person, I'm looking at him. Okay, I done got faster. I've been running the hills. I feel more athletic. I'm defending better. I'm blowing up DHOs. I'm blowing up pick and rolls now. I'm more confident defensively. And then you just measure yourself. People, they measure each other's bodies. They're looking around and seeing how fast guys are. It's a competitive thing. It keeps your competitive juices where it needs to be, because at the end of the day, you could be competing for a spot. You could be competing to become an all-star. You could be competing with yourself. You want whatever the case may be. This is what helps you in that competitive world. So, and I don't want any of my guys to be drilled out. That's for sure. So, I think it's important to play. Absolutely. And you just got to be safe. You have to make sure the environment is correct. You have to make sure that certain guys understand. And that's, in my runs, I always say that, to guys, you're not, if guys are not signed or they're free agents, you're not going to get signed after this round. If guys are free agents, you're not about to get $100 million when the team sees this run. So, at the end of the day, it's important to be safe and understand that we're in here to get better. That's the main thing. We're in here to get better, push each other, go hard, be safe, make sure everything is NBA movements. That's why it's important to other NBA guys to play against other NBA guys, because we understand NBA defense, low man, 2-9, stun on the backside. They, nail help. They understand these things. And it's good sometimes to mix it with young guys and overseas guys too, because their energy and effort, they're like, oh, that's that guy. I'm picking him up full court just to measure themselves. You know what I mean? So it helps in all angles and all facets of basketball, because basketball is playing basketball. It's not training. So I think it's super important to play.
That's one of the dopest explanations I've had about open gym, man. But Remy, I appreciate you.
Yes,
best of luck to you, and for the rest of, I guess this is your end season. You're about to go to see your off season.
Yes,
more work left to be done, but much appreciated.
Appreciate it, man.